Shalom, love and blessings. For a few minutes, come up, start straight. Okay, shalom, love, and blessings, Yah, eyes family of Yah. Grace and peace, beloved. Grace and peace. Love and blessings, Brother Glenn. This is going to be an interesting one. I hope that you've told somebody to tell somebody to join in live, because it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a bit different than the norm. So what's happening is everybody's dealing with this AI stuff. So I said, you know what, let me look into this. Let me look into this ChatGPT. I've done a test with it before, quite interesting. Just made it without any prompts to go through the website. And maybe that's what alerted Google to completely block it from its search algorithm. I don't know. But but I thought about, sorry, bear with me, window. I thought about putting this on today. Share. There we are. Okay. I thought about putting this on today because I was going through an old book and thinking about an old book, and you wonder whether certain prophecies or predictions have come to pass. Now, the good thing about AI is that the speed it can process information is phenomenal. It really can get through search websites ridiculously fast. So there's a book that we've been reading and I've read before. Let me get to this just to show you. And it's called Philip Thora. Philip Thora. Let me just got to try and show this on the window, show on the stream. Yeah, here it is. Here's the book. Now, this book was written in the 1700s, and it's a book that is against the Marriage Act, which is a law that was passed in England, but it's actually throughout the colonial territories. So these marriage laws affect everywhere where the British system of so-called democracy has power, has effect. And so I basically asked AI, have the predictions or the prophetic predictions made by Martin Madden, have they come to pass? Now, initially, when it answered the question, it answered the question in a short time span. So it was only dealing with the immediate effect. So within the 1700s, if there was any effect. I then asked the same question and I put in up until now. And then that is what brought up what we're going to hear and play now. Okay. So it came up with this Martin Medan's predictions and modern social outcomes, a comparative analysis compiled by ChatGPT. And so I'm going to put this on the website with the links. It really did a number. It really did a number. There's only one thing that I would say I disagreed with it in. And the only reason it did that, it said at the end of what I'm going to play you that it does not advocate or uphold polygyny or polygamy. And the reason for that is because AI is programmed to not advise or condone the breaking of any laws. And polygyny would break the law that's called bigamy, which is within the laws. And I've done a teaching on this, which is within the laws entitled crimes against persons or something like that. So the law of bigamy, where a man has married in the system more than one wife, is in amongst the punishments that they give for murderers, rapists, pedophiles, and all forms of bodily damage like rape, etc. So it is listed amongst those types of crime, believe it or not. So that's the only thing that I said that it was so let me just get this timeline. Okay, so I'm going to play this for you. And I want you to hear what it says because it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Bear with me one moment. I want to make sure that you guys can hear this. And I don't know if you can. Bear with me one moment. So share the screen. Window, entire screen. Yep, there we are. Screen, share the audio. Fantastic. Okay. Have a listen to this. Have a listen to this. All right. Ready? Good. Be with me. Can you hear this? Can you hear it? Please let me know if you can hear that. Because I don't really get a feedback on if you can hear it or not. Actually, let me. No, you didn't hear it. You couldn't hear that. Okay, let's try this.
Welcome to The Explainer. You know, sometimes the most shocking predictions about our
Can
world
you hear it
don't
now?
come from futurists, but from the deep past. Today, we're diving into an absolutely wild story about a forgotten voice from the 1700s who might have seen our modern world more clearly than we do. So let me just ask you this straight up. Could a radical cleric, writing almost 250 years ago, have actually predicted some of the biggest family crises we're facing right now? I know,
Thanks.
it sounds impossible. But what if I told you his warning about a new marriage law looks eerily like the data we see all around us today? Yeah, this story is a wild ride. So, let's meet the man at the center of all this. His name was Martin Medan. He was an English cleric, and in 1780 he dropped a bombshell of a book called the Philothora. It was so scandalous because he actually argued for, get this, polygamy. But here's the thing, his crazy solution was really just his desperate answer to a problem he saw getting totally out of control.
Medan was completely fixated on this idea he called female ruin. And back then, this wasn't just about a broken heart. For a woman to be seduced, maybe have a child, and then be abandoned by the man, well, that was it. It meant total social and economic collapse. She was basically left with nothing. No money, no support, no future. That was the catastrophe he was trying to prevent.
So what did he think was causing all this ruin? Medan pointed his finger directly at one law, the Marriage Act of 1753. See, before that, a simple promise and, well, consummation could be seen as a real marriage. But this new law said, nope.
Sorry about that. Okay, you'd never believe I used to be a DJ. Anyway, you'd never believe I used to be a DJ. Anyway, many moons ago. So if you heard that, he actually said, "Oh,
Marriage Act of 1753.
listen."
See, before that, a simple promise and, well, consummation could be seen as a real marriage.
So before this marriage act, a promise and the consummation was seen as a real marriage. Okay, which is nearly biblical. But you got to add in the dowry for a virgin and the father's permission, or the father's support. So that just shows that this was, what year was this? This was 17. Oh gosh, bear with me one moment. Bear with me one moment. It was 17. 53. So the Clandestine Marriages Act was in 1753. Now, Martin Madan wrote this series of books in 1780. So it had already been in effect for 53, 27 years. And so he must have started seeing, things that were happening. But he made some predictions that are basically nigh on prophetic. And so I got AI to research what was happening then and the progressive difference up until now, and to contrast it, to compare it with the books that Martin Madan had written, and whether his predictions had come true. So this is what we're listening to. So this is like over 250 years of this particular law, and AI has researched whether or not, according to government data, research papers, social research, and different surveys that have been done, official surveys from government and official websites, whether what Martin Madan stated would happen, did it happen? Let's continue.
Madan pointed his finger directly at one law, the Marriage Act of 1753. See, before that, a simple promise and, well, consummation could be seen as a real marriage. But this new law said, nope, you need a formal ceremony in a church. And Madan's big radical prediction was this: once you make marriage just a piece of paper, you give irresponsible men the perfect loophole to just walk away saying, hey, we never had the ceremony, so I don't know you a thing.
Right. So just pausing there. Isn't it amazing that women nowadays are fighting and arguing and hungering and hankering after the very thing that has caused them the greatest distress in society? It's interesting.
Okay, it is so easy to get hung up on the whole polygamy thing. I mean, that's why everyone thought he was nuts back then. But for this explainer, we're going to put his wild solution to the side for a minute.
So that's, I didn't want to focus on polygyny in this. I just wanted to focus on did what he stated in his writings, did it come to pass? 250 years later, what does our AI, what does government documents say?
Let's focus on his diagnosis of the problem. What was the core logic behind his fear? His argument really breaks down into 4 simple steps, like a chain reaction. First, he believed that a man's actions, actually creating a child with a woman, that's what creates the real moral duty, not some legal document. Second, because of that, formal laws can actually hurt women by giving bad actors an easy way out. Third, this ruin he talked about wasn't just bad luck. It was a direct result of men dodging that responsibility. And all of that leads to his biggest point. For a society to be stable, fathers have to be held accountable. Period. So, that was his theory, all the way back in 1780. But was he right? Did any of his dire predictions actually happen? Okay, let's fast forward 250 years and look at the hard data. The results are pretty staggering. Let's start right in Madan's backyard, England and Wales. In 2021, for the very first time in history, the majority of babies, over half, were born outside of a formal, legal marriage. Just let that sink in. This is a massive social shift, and it's exactly the kind of thing Madan was worried about. Unions happening without the official commitment. And look, this isn't just a British thing. Not at all. This trend is everywhere. In France, it's over 60%. Here in the United States, it's over 40%. The very thing Madan feared in his own country has become a standard feature across the entire Western world. But what does this actually mean for people? Well, the data shows some serious consequences. In the UK, almost half of all kids will live in a single-parent home at some point, and those kids are twice as likely to grow up in poverty. Now, doesn't that sound a lot like Magun's ruin? And in the US, the picture is just as stark. More than 18 million kids are living without their biological father, which we know is linked to all sorts of challenges later in life. And this isn't some fringe idea, by the way. Mainstream sociologists, like David Papineau, have built their careers studying this. His work flat out confirms what Madan worried about, that the absence of fathers has a real, measurable, and often negative effect on kids and on society. So this all leads to a giant question. If, in millions and millions of cases, individual fathers aren't playing that traditional provider role anymore, then who is? How did our society adjust to this new reality? And this is where we see the really fundamental change. Madan's world was built on what you could call the personal provider model. The individual man was responsible. He was on the hook. Our world has created something totally different. The surrogate provider. When a father is gone, the responsibility and the massive financial cost is picked up by the state through things like welfare, housing benefits, and all sorts of other social programs. You can see right here how our modern world directly clashes with his. Madan thought an informal union created a binding moral duty. Our laws today, they mostly disagree. He argued a man's duty exists whether there's a certificate or not. Today, that duty often isn't enforced unless there's a formal legal claim. His whole goal was protecting women and children from ruin. Our legal system today is much more focused on individual rights and secular rules. So all of this leads us to a conclusion that's both totally fascinating and honestly pretty challenging. It turns out we're still wrestling with the exact same problem that Martin Madan saw brewing all those centuries ago. And this, right here, is the great irony of Martin Madan. The guy was laughed out, condemned, and totally dismissed for his proposed solution. But his diagnosis? His warning that separating sex from long-term paternal responsibility would lead to massive social problems? Well, that turned out to be shockingly accurate. The very things he was afraid of are now multi-billion-dollar headaches for governments all over the modern world.
Whoo-wee! You heard it. You heard it. And remember, this thing is unbiased. It's literally just telling you, it's just stating
And that
facts. After doing the research, going through tons of websites, I've even got a timeline of how things changed and how they got worse. So you've heard it. Let's rewind and let it sink in. And I want the women to listen and think, because they are literally advocating for the system that has brought ruin to either their family, their friend's family, their neighbor's family. Brother Glenn says it here. He was right, but seemed as a madman. Come on. That's why the Bible says, well, we're better off being a fool for Christ, because at the end, it's going to turn out that we are correct. This man, this brother, he was 110% right, but we're still not finished. Let's continue. Let's listen.
fascinating and honestly pretty challenging. It turns out we're still wrestling with the exact same problem that Martin Madan saw brewing all those centuries ago. And this, right here, is the great irony of Martin Madan. The guy was laughed out, condemned, and totally dismissed for his proposed solution. But his diagnosis? His warning that separating sex from long-term paternal responsibility would lead to massive social problems? Well, that turned out to be shockingly accurate. The very things he was afraid of are now multi-billion-dollar headaches for governments all over the modern world. And that leaves us with this final, really important question. Maiden's answer was a strict religious moral code. Our answer has been secular laws and a government safety net. But if neither of those things has really solved the problem of fractured families and father absence, then what does? What is the secret ingredient? the cultural norm, the personal ethic that actually makes commitment and social responsibility stick.
You see, and this was the problem. This is the problem with what was and with Christianity, all religions, is that it's religion. And what happened in the garden, the fall of man, had nothing to do with religion. It had to do with relationship. I'll say that again because the sirens went off. It had nothing to do with religion. Salvation has got nothing to do with religion. Righteousness has got nothing to do with religion. It is to do with obedience to the commandments, the laws, the statutes, and the judgments of Yah. You cannot be lawless and follow Christ.
Weird family, but if neither of those has Aiden's answer.
Right, everybody's looking for solutions. Nobody's looking at obedience. And as you heard, this is way beyond just happy homes. As he said, it's a multi-billion-dollar problem. Multi-billion-dollar. Let's hear it again.
Brewing all those centuries ago. And this, right here, is the great irony of Martin Madan. The guy was laughed out, condemned, and totally dismissed for his proposed solution. But his diagnosis? His warning that separating sex from long-term paternal responsibility would lead to massive social problems? Well, that turned out to be shockingly accurate. The very things he was afraid of are now multi-billion-dollar headaches for governments all over the modern world. And that leaves us with this.
So, there you have it. There you have it. It's probably going to be one of my shortest because I do have another audio that goes in deeper, but I think that this is enough to make you think and question. And I just implore you, get back to Bible. Get back to Bible. Yeah. Get back to what Yah commanded, created, desired. Because we can obviously see that the laws of this world have created more problems than they have solutions, have destroyed societies, even though they have the veil of stating that, oh yeah, we're doing what's best for the people. No, they're not. They are not. And I'm going to leave you with a scripture. It was one that I was actually wanted to start with. I was going to start with this, but this is Ephesians chapter 6. And it says here, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Oh, bear with me. Let's do this. So that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers. Okay. Against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So when you understand what that verse here means, let's go to it. Ephesians 6, verse 12. It's not just against witchcraft and against obeah and against all these type of things. It's also against the world rulers who are under the influence, and as we know, and is being revealed more and more, they are under occult forces who they get their directions from. And these occult dark forces are what have given these laws. They said, right, put this together. Put this together. And so they present it as if it's going to help, but it doesn't. Psalms 1 1:10. Obedience comes first, then you'll understand. Amen. Just like Yahushua said, if you abide in my word, then you are my disciples, then you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. So he says here that our struggle is not against flesh and blood. So even though the people who may be trying to do the obia, the juju, whatever, the people who trying to work evil eye, whatever, the people who are trying to do witchcraft, necromancy, all these types of forms of witchcraft, voodoo, etc., or voodoo, those are just kind of like base levels. Now, I'm telling you this. The occult, the hidden stuff, is being done through our governments. And so you can now see how they've been able to create a law that is against the law of God, and yet get even those who say they are believers and godly to support it, to stand by it, and to fight for it as if it came from the mouth of Yah. And yet it is the very thing that is destroying the homes. So no wonder people are praying, and they're doing everything they can. But because they're supporting, they're fighting for, they're upholding the standards of the devil without knowing it, there can't be any peace in their home. Anyway, I hope that's been a blessing to you and it's opened your eyes. Yeah, all the information that I got, even there's a much longer audio podcast that goes into far deeper and brings out even more resources that's going to be posted up as well. And the whole research is going to be on the website yahites.org, which you're literally just going to have to go there direct because Google don't like us. Okay. All right. Shalom, love, and blessings, beloved. Have yourselves a blessed evening, day, or whatever you're going to do. Shalom, love, and blessings in Messiah.